Hello and welcome to the podcast In the Black. I'm your host, Sterling McKinley, and tonight we have an awesome guest with us. We have the founder of the Black Speakers Network, Brian J. Oles. So, Brian, thank you for being on the show tonight. How are you doing?
Hey, listen, I am super excited to be here, man, and I am ready to rock and roll, brother. Congratulations on creating such an
Thank you.
incredible platform.
Great, great. So, I like to start off with the genesis, how it all started. So, tell me kind of how you started and how you transitioned into being a full time entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So first of all, I mean, as you know, I'm the skinny kid from Baltimore, and grew up small family. I had big dreams of being an aerospace engineer, and so I was the kid sitting on the living room floor watching the. Remember, they used to have the NASA space shuttle
Right.
launches just about every week. I wanted to be a part of that, and so I was on that path. Made it all the way to engineering school at Morgan State University, one of the top Black engineering schools in the country, and I had a little roadblock, Sterling, called Calculus 2. I don't know if you've heard of it, had to go through it. It was my place where I just had a moment where I said, you know what, let me just go see what the School of Business is talking
Right.
about. And
Okay.
so felt like my dreams were dashed. I'm sure a lot of people have had that experience where you
Yeah.
kind of had this dream, this vision, and it didn't quite
Right.
match up to what you expected. And so for me,
Hmm.
I had to figure out what was going to happen in my life because I really had no direction from there. And
Right.
it was at Morgan State University in the School of Business in 2006 when I stumbled upon an organization called Toastmasters.
Yes.
And Sterling, I'm sure you're familiar with Toastmasters,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Definitely. Great place. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had no idea. For those who are listening right now and aren't familiar, Toastmasters is a global
Right.
organization where you could practice your public speaking skills. And so you had this shy, skinny, introverted kid from Baltimore looking at this opportunity to climb the proverbial mountain. Not for anybody else, but to get over that fear for myself. And so
Right.
I volunteered. I signed up to join, and I volunteered to be one of the first speakers at that meeting, man. And so it was at Morgan State University
Hmm.
where the genesis of this speaking journey began.
Right.
And like we were talking about, I had this fear of speaking, and I really didn't feel like I
Hmm.
also didn't feel like I had an aptitude for it. I didn't believe that I could lead two
Right.
people in silent prayer, let alone
Say that
try
one
to.
more time.
Yeah, so and this is an introvert thing, like, I did not believe that I could lead 2 people in silent prayer. So, it was like, you want somebody to speak, it's not me.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
but that's where it all started, was over at Morgan
Yeah.
State University,
Right.
2006, and,
Hmm.
doing that first presentation.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It's funny. I like to say, myself, I'm a speaker. Speaking, I don't think it's something that, a lot of us don't plan. Just like you, many people, I was terrified of public speaking. But it's just funny how the way life happens, you kind of just fall into it. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that story, how you got started. So, let's focus on that. So, going back to your days at Morgan State, you said you made that shift from, I believe, engineering to the School of Business. So, was it just the math classes, or was it more, was something inside say, hey, I need to make a change?
Well, I think what it was is that I hit this place where, you know, and I think a lot of people struggle
Hmm.
with this. Anytime that you're going into a career, uh, the conventional career advice is to get a what they call a realistic job preview
Right.
of what you're actually going to be doing. I had no idea what an actual engineer did, and now that I'm on the other side, all of my friends now, like I have an amazing friend, William Redmond, who also
Okay.
went to Morgan. He's actually the reason I got through AutoCAD, like the early baby engineering classes.
Right.
He talks about some of the stuff he's doing now. He's like, Brian, I don't use none of that. Like, I spend all day in meetings and managing
Right.
projects and doing all this stuff. But so it actually ended up being a good thing.
Hmm.
But for me, I think what really happened was just confidence, man. And
Right.
that's the reason why Toastmasters, I think, kind of
Hmm.
came in because, when you get on the stage and you're
Right.
speaking in front of an audience, a lot of times there's this common myth that, speaking is like the number one fear of people.
Right.
And the deeper fear isn't really the fear of
Hmm.
speaking is the fear of being judged. Like we
Right.
don't want to fail publicly. Like that goes against
Exactly.
like everything that's hardwired in us. And
Right.
so I think at the end of the day, if you have the confidence, it really doesn't matter, if you're trying to get an engineering degree. It doesn't matter if you're trying to start a company, build a business. Confidence in yourself, a internal belief system that even if you don't have everything right
Hmm.
now, you
Right.
can. Everything is learnable, and I think that's really what that was rooted in. And it took time. It took 10 years for me to build that
Yeah.
muscle
I,
to
I, I
know that
like
I could do
I like
that.
what you said here because it takes time, and one thing I learned about speaking is you have to do it over and over and over again. I mean, like anything, the more you do anything, uh,
Yep.
the better and the more comfortable you become at that. So, talk about that initial like fear. Like you say, it's not necessarily the fear of speaking, the fear of being judged because. In my own speaking journey, I got to a point where I liked getting booed. I never got booed, but you say something to the crowd, and they give you that blank stare, like, "What is the guy talking about?" I almost like that feeling. So it's funny getting all that initial fear. Talk about what strategies you use. How did you get over that initial feeling of saying, "Hey, what are these people thinking about me? Do you think I'm this crazy guy?"
Yeah, man. Well, let me take you back to that first
Mm,
presentation. So here we are in the summer of 2006. They called my name and I stood up. It was in a small classroom over at
right.
Morgan State University. I stood up and nervously made my way to the front of the room,
Hmm.
and I had my notes in front of me. It
Right.
was my very first presentation in Toastmasters, and if you were sitting on the front row, Sterling, you absolutely would have known I was nervous because you would have noticed a couple things. Number one, my sweaty palms, they were starting to the paper was turning clear. You know what I mean? Like it was
Right.
bad. Pool of water starting to form around my feet. Um, Shaky voice. So as I began
Right.
my presentation, that my voice just started to crack under the weight of the pressure
Right.
of what I was attempting to do. And
Yeah.
then halfway through the presentation, I was like, okay, I got to get rid of some of this nervous energy. And you know what speakers do when we nervous? We start pacing back and
Right.
forth. And so I'm walking back and forth. At one point, I almost walked out of the
Out of the
room.
classroom.
Like my friend, I had a
Had to pull you back
Nigerian
in.
friend. Yeah, he was like he's
Where you
sitting
come?
in the back. His name is Depot. He's like trying to wave me back in because I'm about to walk off the stage,
Right.
and so all that stuff was happening.
Hmm.
And as you mentioned, the thing about fear is interesting because when we talk about speaking, they always talk about having butterflies flying
Right.
around in your stomach. You
Hmm.
know, mine weren't just like regular butterflies. Mine were like the Hannibal Lecter style, like horror movie style, about to like pop out of my chest. And
Right.
but nobody would know that. And
Yeah.
so I wrap up my presentation,
Hmm.
Sterling, and I immediately noticed three things. Number one, I was still alive. I didn't die on the
Right.
spot like I thought I was going to. Number two, in Toastmasters, like church and a lot of other organizations, it's a really supportive environment. So everyone
Right.
was clapping,
Hmm.
and they stood up, and that became kind of a tradition.
Right.
But the third thing I realized, which is most important, is that listen, I just survived my first presentation.
Hmm.
If I could deliver one presentation, I could deliver two. And
Right.
two turned into four, four turned into 10, 10 turned into 100. And the person that you are, this is what I
Right.
learned to answer your question. Just like when you're in the gym, you got to get your reps in.
Hmm.
The person that you are, like your muscles aren't, if you're in the gym, you're trying to, build your body or get
Right.
bigger, get stronger. You know, you go on Monday and you go on Friday, there's not going to be much of a change. There's going to
Right.
be a significant change from when you went in January to when you go in June.
Mhm.
So you got to get your reps in. It's the same thing with speaking. The more that you speak, the more that you're
Right.
able to get over those things. And it's not because of, you know, anything magical. What's actually happening is the more time you take the stage, the more that you
Hmm.
believe in yourself that you can actually deliver your message with confidence. And so now you're
Right.
not spending so much time focused on how you're coming across.
Hmm.
You can actually focus on connecting with your audience and
Right.
making sure that you are actually delivering value.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. You know, my first time speaking was similar. You know, I was totally by. I remember I was in the restroom for my speech, and I looked in the mirror and I had that 8 Mile moment. I was like, you know, if I
Mom
throw up,
spaghetti.
I want to throw up now, and if I leave out the back door, nobody would know. But similar to you, you know, it wasn't Toastmasters, but I gave a speech and it went great. And I remember that time leaving the state, I said, "Wow, this is something that I want to do." And I think one thing too, speaking has so many forms. It's just not about being on the stage and talking. It's about your job and your personal life, your family. There's so many ways that you can speak. So, talk about that for somebody that say, "Hey, I want to be a speaker." You know, talk about how you can get practice at speaking, not just by speaking on stages, but in your job, in your everyday life, speaking.
Absolutely. So the vast majority of presentations that you're going to give, the vast majority of speaking are going to be informal opportunities. And so
Right.
you mentioned a few of them, everything from having a conversation at a team meeting to, raising your hand with a good idea to being able to pitch a product or service, a job interview, or even like a casual conversation at a networking event or a conference. Those are all speaking engagements. One of the phrases that we
Right.
adopted in Black Speakers Network is that, we don't wait for speaking engagements. We are a speaking engagement. So at
Exactly.
the end of the day, we have the ability to kind of create and deliver content through a variety of modalities. And that includes writing. Because guess what? The best speeches, we always say the best speeches aren't written, they're rewritten. And so that skill of writing is closely tied to our ability to actually be able to,
Right.
speak effectively. So
Okay, great.
throughout the course of the month, it is you're more often likely to find yourself, speaking to small groups,
Hmm.
speaking on conference calls, webinars, and things of that nature. Outstanding place that speakers tend to find opportunity to practice those skills are right here on podcasts.
Right.
Podcasts are incredible venues. We started a um, format within BSN to help
Hmm.
broker podcast hosts with podcast
Yeah.
guests. But the idea is that you want to be in a place where you can kind of get your reps in, but
Right.
also get your signature story and get your
Hmm.
message down to a place where, Sterling, I should be able to wake you up 2 o'clock in the morning and be like,
Ready to
hey,
go.
yeah, give me
Right.
your, thing, and you could deliver it with a fair amount of, confidence.
Okay. Well, let's back up some before we get too far into that. So, you talked about going to Morgan State, talking about getting on through speaking, and I think you touched something really key now. A lot of people want to know, want to get better at speaking, but don't know how to do it. So, tell us about Black Speaker Network, why you created it, and what it does for anybody that's trying to become a better speaker.
Yeah, so Black Speakers Network, we're a global community of current and aspiring professional speakers. And the entire goal, the reason I started it was because one of the things I recognize is that if you're going to learn anything, you probably want to be in a community of people who are a little bit ahead of you. To help guide the way. And, I searched that out. I was trying to find an organization specifically for Black speakers coming from an HBCU like Morgan State. I recognize the power that
Right.
we bring to the microphone. Nobody tells a story better than, we like our entire culture is based on
Right.
storytelling. That's how we pass down information.
Exactly.
That's how we teach our kids. And so we are naturally great storytellers. Unfortunately,
Right.
that I saw a gap in the marketplace as it relates
Hmm.
to being able to understand and unlock the power of how to monetize the message and really see speaking as a way to create channels of income for yourself. And so
Right.
BSN is there for that. Our mission is to equip, connect, and inspire the next generation of Black professional speakers. And so we
Okay.
basically do that. We basically do three things, man. We provide training,
Right.
we provide access to resources,
Hmm.
and we provide access to speaking opportunities. And I think that, regardless of where you are on your speaker journey, if you're somebody
Right.
just getting started, trying to figure out how to put all the pieces together, or you're somebody further down the line and
Mhm.
you may have already kind of established yourself, but you're just looking for more visibility, more exposure, more
Right.
opportunity, we fill those gaps. So yeah, I
Okay.
started back in 2016, and we've been rolling ever since, man. It's
Well, let's
it's
talk
cool,
about
man.
that. So I know when you first started, you were still had your W-2 job. You're still working, and I believe doing Black Speaker Network on the side. Talk about that transition when you went from being part time to being a full time entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, I think so. Yes, I started BSN. I had a 11-year stint in corporate,
Okay.
and I had that entire time. I'm kind of a interesting millennial because most of us, change jobs like every 2 to 3 years. Like I worked for the same company from I started a week before I walked across stage, and I stayed there for 11
Oh
years.
wow.
Now I held different roles within the company, but same company 11 years. And throughout the course of that, one of those included, kind of a dream job, which was training and development. So like I really wanted to be a speaker, and I did that. So I was a paid speaker even within my company for 2 years. And then I went back to school. I enrolled in a master's program, University of Maryland, to learn instructional design. So,
Okay.
there's an entire body of knowledge that teaches adult learning theory and how to
Right.
structure curriculum in a way to help people learn. And so I fell in love with that. And so the whole thing was a journey. But yes, in 2016, I started Black Speakers Network for the reasons I mentioned earlier. And I
Hmm.
was kind of bouncing back and forth between the both of them. But I remember one night just kind of just starting it and not asking for permission or anything like that. I created the website, I created the
Right.
social media. We have a paid kind of membership model, but back then
Hmm.
we didn't. It was just more so proof of concept, and I wanted to see if the market was there. Is there an appetite for an organization to support the growth and development of Black speakers? And I
Right.
remember starting the Facebook group, which we still have as a component of our membership, and it went from 100 to 500 to 1,000 to
Hmm.
2,000 to 3,000. Now it's hovering around 16,000 and growing. And so that
Wow.
to me, once you and I feel like that's how you should start a business. Like everybody kind of
Right.
starts with like a proof of concept, and then you build product, you build services around
Hmm.
an audience that's actually hungry for something. And so that was my progression from 2016,
Right.
2017. 2017 was when we introduced an actual membership model. So we
Right.
were technically kind of pre-revenue for like a
Okay.
year, and then decided to move forward. But yeah, I built my business on Friday nights, Saturday,
Right.
and Sunday. Sunday before 3, because after 3 is when this Monday feeling start to kick in, and then I'm
Right.
kind of like no good to
Right.
anybody. So I built
Okay.
built the business, in between
Great.
all of that.
Right. So I'm sure it wasn't all, just up and up. I'm sure there was some downs, lessons you learned along the way. So talk about that. What were some of the early lessons you learned that you wish you had known before you got started, or any advice you give to somebody that's getting started in the same stuff? What was the initial struggles you had?
Yeah, I mean, so many, man. I mean, first of all, my first product was a $5 digital download. It was called 51 online resources to
Yeah.
find and book speaking engagements. So
Yeah, I
that
remember that. I actually downloaded that.
yeah, man. Thank you so much for your business. Yeah. I created that on a
Right.
Friday evening, and I, for me, I believe it was my financial planner that
Hmm.
helped kind of push me in the direction of, kind of starting the membership. And he was like, hey, you probably have people waiting to pay you right now, but they just don't have a way to do it. And our initial membership was
Hmm.
$15 a month.
Right.
Um, and, one of the things that I struggled with and still struggle with is standing in my own way. I think a lot of times as
Hmm.
entrepreneurs, we can have the blueprint, we can have the models.
Right.
I have a bookshelf of books behind me with every marketing, business development strategy you could think of. So it's not an information
Hmm.
gap, it's an execution gap.
Right.
And I think everything from fear to doubt can pour into that.
Hmm.
So if I had an opportunity to do some of the things over again, it would be to close that execution gap much faster
Right.
and get customers. Like until you have an actual customer, everything is kind of like guesswork. You're
Hmm.
not really sure, if you have a sustainable business model, if you've reached like
Right.
product market fit, or if you are really kind of accurately assessing the competitive environment.
Right.
And um and for us, that was something that took a little bit of time. And so I would encourage anybody that has a business now, like, get whatever it is like out of your head into like a saleable form as quickly as possible. Like, I don't care if it's a one sheet, I don't care if
Right.
it's an event, I don't care if it's a piece of software.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be like, you need to get people, and not the people that are like, oh yeah, Sterling, that sounds like a great idea. Let me know when you start. I'm like, no,
Right.
I need your credit card number, because people
Right.
will tell you stuff all day, but then when it's time to swipe the credit card, it's a
Right.
different story.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
think
the thing.
too. One thing you just said is, of course, you want things to be as polished, but sometimes we can waste so much time trying to get it perfect. And I think if you look at big companies, Microsoft, Apple, large companies in the world, they constantly mess things up. They put something out to market, and they learn, from it how it fails success, and they make it better over time. So I think it's important, yes, you want things to be as good as possible, but don't spend so much time, thinking about the idea and trying to get it perfect, because when you do put it out, somebody else probably has already done it by then. So yeah, talk more about that. Just
Well,
to
well, I have
how you
I have an example.
get those ideas out.
Well, I mean, I have so many examples of that. I think,
Right.
and you mentioned Apple, the iPhone one, nobody talks
Mm.
about like how it sucked and it was only available on AT&T at
Right.
first, and there was no app store. Like,
Exactly.
the first iPhone sucked, but
Right.
the current version is, immaculate. So you have to
Right.
start somewhere. I think for BSN, the other thing that, we kind of, because you mentioned about my transition process, I had this kind of massive goal of, listening to conventional wisdom. They're like, okay, you need 6 months expenses in the bank. You should pay off all of
Right.
your debt. You should have, X amount of,
Right.
reoccurring revenue and stuff like that. And when I made the decision to leave, like, I
Right.
didn't have any of that. I
Right.
was like, but I knew,
Mm.
and this is a decision that everybody has to make. So
Right.
I'm never going to be that person to say, oh, just quit your job. But we also, because I could also see like, hey, we have 12 to 18 months of continuous, not just revenue, but revenue growth, membership
Mm.
growth. And so I had a board like in my office at the time,
Right.
and I just wrote a number, and I was like tracking toward that number. And so at a certain point, there's an opportunity cost associated with, not doing the things that you could be doing if you're the vast majority of your attention is somewhere else. And I think a lot of people
Hmm.
think about, the time that you're, working for someone else, and that's the big thing. But for me, it's not necessarily the time. You only have a certain capacity. You only have a certain amount of creative, emotional kind of
Right.
energy in the day that you can dedicate to something. And so even if I only, if I get home in the evening at 6, I may, if I've given my best creative
Right.
energy to somebody else's business that day, you're probably not going to get that much out of me. So
Right.
it's more about that piece than anything else. And then
Okay.
I think that's a place that we kind of don't pay as much attention to when we're trying to make decisions around,
Right.
should I go full time? Should I stay in my job? I
Okay.
think, once it makes sense to you, that's the point where you should exit. And at some point you just got to go after it, man. And I did it. It wasn't perfect. And to your point, like, we launched some stuff. It was scrappy.
Right.
I built my first website. We just overhauled our brand website about a
Hmm.
year and a half ago to something that could actually support the size and functionality and
Right.
complexity of the organization. So stuff doesn't have to happen in order.
Okay.
Like, it just needs to happen.
Right.
And you need to trust yourself as an entrepreneur to
Hmm.
figure out where to allocate your resources. And I'm constantly on that journey,
Great.
even to today, man.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that about your journey. So let's move on to one of our final segments here. segment we call Explain That Gram. And that's where we go to your Instagram account and we find a post that's a little different that tells us, a little bit about who you are. So tell us
Yeah.
about this post. Looks like you're an amateur NASCAR driver. Tell me what's going on here.
Yeah, man. So I love anything with an engine.
Okay.
And so I mean, snowmobile, ATV, you name it. Like if it has an engine, I haven't flown yet. I do want to get like my pilot's license at some point and my boating license. But that photo, if it's the one I'm thinking about, it's the one where I live in Maryland. There's a indoor
Hmm.
go-kart track called Autobahn. They're electric go-karts. And so if y'all don't have one of these in your hometown, I highly recommend coming to Maryland to try ours out
So,
or
so
find
hold
me in
on,
another
not
location.
gas powered, but electric.
Electric, bro.
Okay.
Okay. So here's the deal. There are two tracks inside
Right.
the facility. One is a little bit longer than the other. And essentially the carts go up to 70 miles per hour.
Oh wow.
You have to wear a helmet, you gotta watch a video, you gotta sign your
Right.
life away before you even get a chance to drive it. But it's one of my favorite things, and I think part of it is, you know, as as I've kind of learned more about myself, like I
Right.
recognize that, I like speed. I just do. Like, I
Okay.
was a little kid on my bike,
Right.
riding around the neighborhood trying to race everybody. Like I'm always gonna like speed and adventure, but like in a controlled way, not like a
Yeah. Yeah.
stupid
Not
like
reckless. Right.
restaurant way.
Right.
Yeah, I love living. I want to live a very long time, but speed is great. And so, but I like from one of the things I recognize about just building a business is balance,
Right.
and there's a big conversation right now around mental health. There's a
Hmm.
big conversation around, taking care of yourself. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to leave, build a business is to create the type of economic freedom, financial
Right.
freedom, and really the mental health that comes along with that, Sterling, is incredible. And so now, like if I want to go like to the Autobahn, by the way, the best time to go is in the
During
middle of the
the
day.
day. Right. During
Nobody's
the day.
there. Like you
Right.
want to have a horrible time, go at Saturday at like six
Right.
o'clock, where it's like 45, 18-year-old, 17-year-olds like in line waiting. So
Right.
I just encourage people to, find the thing that like lights you up
Hmm.
inside and like keep a pulse on it. For me, it's anything with an engine, but that's kind of the
All
backstory
right.
behind that.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing. So, wrapping up, come to the end here. So, tell people how can they find you online and how can they get in contact with Black Speakers Network.
Yeah, man. So I'm super easy to find. I say this jokingly, but I'm kind of serious. If you really want to find me, you could Google me. Like I am not hard to find, especially Black Speakers Network. We are the only Black Speakers Network. So you can go to blackspeakersnetwork.com or just put it in Google. Like Google is everything. So go to Google, find us. You can find out more about the membership. I highly recommend joining our Facebook community, where we're constantly sharing tools and resources, and encouragement, and connecting with other speakers around the world. And if you want to connect with me directly, I mean, I don't know, man. I guess LinkedIn is a good place.
Right.
That's the only one that's not like full. Like I can still add people on LinkedIn, so
Right.
that's nice. I'm full on all the other platforms. So yeah,
Right.
follow me on LinkedIn. That'll work. Brian
Okay.
J. Old, like the car
All right.
Oldsmobile.
All right. Thanks, Ryan, for your time. It was great talking with you.
You too, man. I'm proud of you, man. Keep up the great
Oh,
work, brother.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So, once again, thank you for joining us for the End of Black podcast. And once again, Brian shares so many tips and so many gems with us. Once again, get on with that fear of people judging you. And next, speed to market. If you have an idea, yes, you want to be, good, but just get it out there. And as you get it out there and you do it again and again, like he said, you learn and get better. So once again, thank you for joining us for the podcast. Join us again here next week at 5 p.m. Every Thursday at 5 p.m. We're here talking with minority, diverse entrepreneurs, sharing their struggles, their challenges, their success stories, but more importantly, like Brian said, how to build a business that's profitable and that stays in the black. Thanks again, and I'll see you on next Thursday. Goodbye.